Bloomberg News is reporting that in his final days in office, President Trump still pushing for more countries to make peace with Israel, again using his patented now transactional approach to world diplomacy. Bloomberg reports that Trump wants to invest up to $1 billion in investment for Indonesia if they normalize relations with Israel soon. Indonesia is the world's largest Muslim-majority nation. They have nearly 270 million citizens. A Trump White House official says $1 billion in financing could be paid up front, with possibly another $1 billion up for grabs if peace talks advance quickly. With us now is EMANUEL SHAHAF, the vice chairman of the Israel-Indonesia Chamber of Commerce. This seems, according to the Bloomberg report, EMANUEL, and it's quoting directly the government official, the director of the Development Finance Corporation. It's a straight-up quid pro quo. You'll get $1 billion in aid, make peace with Israel, normalize ties. Is it a good deal?
Well, it would be a good deal for Indonesia. I don't really think Indonesia needs the money, so it's just some kind of payoff, like the transactions which happened in the Gulf. But it would be a fantastic deal for Indonesia because relations with Israel would really help Indonesia to realize its potential, which it hasn't been doing for the last 30, 40 years.
Talk to me more about Indonesia. It is the world's biggest Muslim-majority country. But, you know, Israelis already, by the thousands every day, they had been going to Dubai for vacation. It's a fruit of peace with the UAE. Hundreds of thousands of Israelis have Moroccan roots. They want to go to Rabat and go to Morocco for tourism. Another fruit of peace. What would the benefit be of normalization with Indonesia?
Well, tourism would be one part. That would be, of course, interesting because Indonesia is a fascinating tourist attraction with, very many attractions, which would be very interesting for Israelis. But the main thing would be, it would be a market for Israeli in technologies and the opportunity to develop Indonesian agriculture and other parts of the economy which are underdeveloped, and where we could, may have a big impact.
EMANUEL, you're the vice chairman of the Chamber of Commerce. Are there ties, clandestine ties? Are there indirect connections between Israel and Indonesia? Obviously, with Indonesia's population, perhaps there's already kind of business connections already there.
Yes, first of all, there are connections between Israel, the state of Israel, and the government of Israel and the government of Indonesia. There have been for many, many years through back channels and also through other channels. And there is considerable amount of business, probably to the tune of something like $500 million yearly, 80% of which would be imports from Indonesia, mostly commodities. And 20% would be Israeli exports to Indonesia, mostly industrial goods and high-tech. Some of it goes directly, but most of it goes through third countries. And there are, of course, links between businessmen and so on and so forth.
For the Arab League states in recent months, I mean, the big point of contention, the big concern for UAE and Morocco and Sudan as they announced normalization in Bahrain was the Palestinian issue, the feeling from the PA that they've been betrayed by Arab brothers, and then the insistence from these nations that they are still committed to the Palestinian cause. Is it different for Indonesia? I mean, what concerns do they have about normalizing ties?
It's a considerable concern for Indonesia. Indonesia has a small but vocal radical Islamic minority who are, and Indonesia as a country is very much in support of the Palestinians. So creating relations with Israel without Israel doing anything on the Palestinian side will make a big problem for the Indonesian government, and they'll have to address that somehow, which they apparently are doing by shoring up the support of Muslim authorities, because there was just a cabinet reshuffle, and the new incoming Minister of Religious Affairs is from the NU, which is the moderate faction among the Muslims, who are in support of Israel, and that may be an indication that we're going that way.
Yeah, given the government reshuffling, as you just alluded to, do you think it will happen? There will be an announcement of normalization in a few weeks?
Until about 2 weeks ago, I was pretty sure nothing was going to happen. I'm not sure anymore at all. If it'll happen, it'll probably happen before the new administration comes in Washington. But we can't be sure. With Indonesia, you can never be sure. It depends on how the government there feels about the opposition and the circumstances. I hope it'll happen.